We move to the next session, which will give you the outcomes of our transnational program. So the session is entitled Open Access of Cattle Facilities to New Academic and Industry Users. We will start this session with an overview of the program. It will be presented by Richard Dewhurst. Richard is not present here, but he is online. I can see Richard. Yes, Richard is here. Hello, Richard.
Good morning. Good morning.
So, we are just waiting for the slides. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So you can start, Richard.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be with you this morning, albeit online. I really enjoyed hosting the SmartCow annual meeting in Dumfries a long time ago, 3 years ago, and would have loved to have been with you in Brussels. My daughter gets married at the end of this week, and so I decided that I was going to do things remotely, partly to help keep my family sane, and partly to keep myself from coming into contact with the dreaded COVID. I should acknowledge my co-authors on this activity. René and Peter have been very much involved in managing the Transnational Access program. You'll see I got very familiar with René and called him Ren in the title there. Next slide, please. I'm not going to take a huge amount of time. What I want to do is just give a little bit of background about the Transnational Access, and then we have 3 of the users of Transnational Access who are going to talk about their studies and their experiences. And Nick is saying that they don't see the slides, so I'll just pause a minute. Okay, Angela is saying that she can see the slides, so I'll carry on. So just a reminder on So there's an instruction in the chat from Vincent about how to make sure that you can see the slides. So just a little bit of background about Transnational Access and a reminder. It's really part of the program that provides funding for other industry or academics to run studies in the facilities of SmartCow partners. And it does what it says on the tin. It's transnational in that the experiments have to be run in a different state to the state providing the facilities. Generally, it's a member or an associated state of the EU, and it's providing access. And we had over 20 leading cattle research facilities. Those facilities had around 2,500 dairy cows and 1,000 beef cattle with a range of breeds and environmental conditions and a series of different measurement techniques, much of which you've seen this morning in the presentations of joint research activities. So techniques around feed efficiency, nutrient utilization, emissions, digestibility, balance, metabolism. There was a budget of roughly 1.5 million euros, and we expected that would support 30 experiments. Next slide, please. Just to put that on a map as to where the facilities are. Again, this morning already you've come across many of the partners in SmartCow, and these are the facilities that we're providing transnational access. Next slide, please. Just to put that into picture, the range of facilities that were available were all the way from grazing for production studies through animal production studies with beef cattle growing or dairy cattle milking, through to very detailed component research facilities, methane respiration chambers, and digestibility studies. Next slide, please. We defined some priorities for transnational access at the start of the program, and those didn't really change. We reviewed them, but they didn't really change over the course of 4 rounds of transnational access. So we were looking particularly if there are projects that would bring in new users to facilities, expanding the user community. We're looking if there are opportunities to support early career scientists and users who don't have access to these types of facilities in their own countries. In terms of the types of work that we were looking to support through transnational access, then they very much mirror the types of research in the joint research activities that you've been hearing about this morning. So the efficiency of use of feed resources, greenhouse gas emissions and mitigations, efficient and robust animals, animal health and welfare, product quality, precision farming technologies, and also opportunities for basic science in physiology and digestion, metabolism, and underpinning animal welfare. Next slide, please. So before we move on to a presentation, or the series of 3 presentations from the users, just to give you some overall statistics. So within the project, we managed 4 calls for applications for transnational access. We originally started with suggesting we would have 3, but COVID upset things a little bit for us, and we in the end had 4 calls for applications. That overall resulted in 48 applications, and we were able to support 28 of those. So a good success rate. Over half of them we were able to support, although 1 or 2 for various reasons were withdrawn. And in the final tally, we ended up supporting 9,384 cow weeks. And you'll see there the split between academic and private users, slightly more private users than academic users, and a very good split between male and female in terms of the gender of users. That's looking at the main, the primary applicant for each of the TNA projects. So a good balance there. And you'll see at the bottom the range of countries that that requested transnational access: France, UK, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Spain, Ireland, Norway, Denmark, Netherlands, and after some effort to increase participation in the TNA from Eastern Europe, we did have projects that we supported from Bulgaria and also from Macedonia, which was really good. I think that's enough introduction from me, and I think now the next thing to do is to move on to a series of 3 presentations from 3 users who've used TNA to see what they did with the opportunity and their experiences with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. We can take 1 or 2 questions before the 3 examples of that will be presented. Jaap?
Thank you, Richard. Did you see, I mean, with Big Web, we also have TNA calls, and sometimes we see that people suggest things or would like to do things that we didn't offer in the TNA. We sometimes have the facilities to do it, but it's not part of the project. Did you encounter similar things, or were what was offered, what was demanded for was always in line with what was offered?
I think there's 2 sides to that. I think in terms of the topic areas, we were fairly broad in the definition of what we would accept, but we were also clear on things that we wouldn't accept. And there were certainly topics that were requested that we declined on the basis that they weren't in scope. I think the other thing is in relation to capacity, and there I would say that there are examples of people who requested access through the TNA program, and we weren't able to support it through the TNA program, but were able to establish contact and connections that allowed some work to go on out with of the TNA program. So, which I think is a good thing, building on those kind of opportunities and interests.
Okay, I see 2 comments or questions in the chat. First one from Thomas Zakowski, looking at the SmartCow app, I realized that they are not representative from East and Middle European countries. Yes, during this project, it was not possible when we built the project to include research infrastructure from Eastern country, but we tried to attract some TNA users. And the second question from Marketa Rene from Finland. How were the costs defined and covered in TNA project? Richard, do you want to respond to this question?
Yes, I'll have a go at that. The currency that we used to define Transnational Access was a cow week, and so applicants were invited to bid for a number of cow weeks. So if you knew your experiment needed 20 cows and it was going to take 20 weeks, then you can work out the cow weeks. The way that funding flowed to the providers of the facilities was based on the number of cow weeks used at their facility. And without going into too technical details, there are 2 different ways that could be structured. And the different participants nominated that at the start of when we applied for SmartCow. That could either be on actual costs, so recording the actual costs of the experiment, or for a number of other partners, it was a flat rate that was defined at the outset. So partners they provided a budget for the costs of a typical digestion study, or a typical respiration chamber study, or a typical production study. So there were two different ways of doing the costs.
So thank you.